Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Persuading for Profits. This is Brent Hoodenpyle. I'm your host. This is the sales and marketing podcast that gives you the skills, the tools, the strategies you need to go out and crush it in your sales and marketing career. We are hosted and sponsored by RadioUpdate.com, your online publication for all things radio industry, from engineering to programming to sales and marketing. Everything's there. Check them out, RadioUpdate.com. We do thank them for their patronage and for helping us get this thing rolling. It's great to be here. Flying solo today. No guest today, but I do want to do a little bit of a recap and really just give you some good takeaways from the last few guests that we've had. And that's Barry LaBov and Robert Herbst. And something interesting I saw by Alex Hormozi this week, which I think ties in really well with what we're doing here. Of course, Hormozi does. He is Mr. Sales and Marketing with his recent launch, right? Anyway, episode before last, I think we had Barry LaBov on. He is a former musician who is now a sales and marketing trainer. He's an author. He has a book called The Power of Differentiation. Highly recommend that. It's a great deal on Amazon right now. You know how books go on and off special on Amazon. Go over there and pick that up. He's got a great deal happening right now in the book. He's written tons of great sales books. He's an interesting guy. He's passionate about sales. I think he's been doing sales consulting or selling and marketing for about 40 years, it says in his bio. So he has been around. He knows this stuff, and just a fascinating background. He said he started really get into sales when he had to market the band that he and his brother were in and get them gigs. And then I think he was so good at marketing and so good at music that I think his band ended up on an episode of American Bandstand or something like that. But he had a very successful music career. And then he got into sales, and the thing I ask all of my guests at the end of the program, if they were talking to somebody who's just new into sales and they had to give them some sort of advice, what would they say? And early on in sales, he got into sales because he was interested in it, and he approached somebody he saw, maybe it was in his own company, who was a really good salesman. He's like, "Hey, how are you doing this? Or can I pick your brain for a little bit?" And the guy was very helpful, and he sat down with him and he mentored him and really got him off on the right foot in sales. And when I asked him that question at the end of the podcast, what would you say to somebody? And he said to reach out to people who are successful, find out how they're doing it, get a mentor. And he even said himself on the air, he's like, "Look, I'm on LinkedIn, reach out to me." How cool is that? And that's one of the takeaways I guess I have too is mentors are fantastic. My old boss, Joe Pisacchio, who was on one of the first episodes of this podcast, had the same experience. Also a former musician, also a former who got into sales, but he did the same thing. He noticed somebody at the Harley Davidson dealership he was working at the motorcycle shop, who was really good at sales, and the guy was even younger than him. And Joe asked him, "Hey man, how are you doing this? Will you teach me what you're doing?" And the guy said, "Yeah, but you gotta follow what I tell you to do." And the first thing he told him to do was go out and get a book, which was Tom Hopkins' How to Master the Art of Selling. And Joe still has that book. He held up a copy of it that had just been read so many times the cover had fallen off. And he memorized that book. Not memorized, but he studied that book. I've heard him teach that book before. And he followed the advice of his mentor and found a few kind of really good go-to lines, maybe, or I think everybody kind of establishes their own style in sales, and he relied on those and made a great career for himself. And I related that story to Barry LaBov when he was here, and he said, maybe it's something about musicians. He's like, when you're in a band with people, there's no place to hide. If the bass is dragging, if the rhythm section is dragging, you know it. If the lead guy can't play a solo, you know it. If the lead singer can't sing, you know it. And so you get really good at just judging things on, hey, this is good or bad, this works or doesn't work, and you look for people who are doing it well, and you learn from them. You're always learning as a musician, and if you bring that approach to sales, man, you're going to crush it. It seems like there's really two incompatible careers because musicians are all about supposedly just all art and everything, and sales is about finance and business and money, and but they do translate very well. They do. It's easy to move from one to the other in those careers, and as a musician, the best musicians are the ones that you hear about are the ones who at some way or another have been really good at marketing themselves and in selling. So that's kind of an interesting connection there, but that was a huge takeaway from there with LaBov. Another guy that and also the power of differentiation, which is the title of his book. It's what makes you good. And he really talks about it as a company. What makes you good? What makes you unique? What makes you different? A lot of times companies will start off and be really good and really successful, and then somehow change the way that they were doing it and kind of become a blander version of themselves, kind of morph into doing things like other people, which ironically are the people that they were better than before. But there's always this pull to conform to something that is supposedly the better way or the right way, and lose sight of who you really are. And I think that's very important as a company. His team, what they do is they will come in and really study a company, figure out what's different about them, what makes them successful, and then coach them back to getting to that way, coach them back to getting to that way of operating. You'll see that with sports teams too, especially in football. Man, you got successful by doing this, and then all of a sudden you changed and you started playing it safe. Why did you start running the offense differently? And you'll see that in all sports. But in sales, I've seen that before where I've trained people before. They left me, they were successful, they go work with somebody else, and I get a call, hey, this guy's not performing, go see what's up with him. And I go back there in training, and they've started doing something else. It's like, why did you do that? I had you trained the right way. You were so good. Why did you change that? Well, somebody else told me this way was better. So that's something I think in sales and in life, you got to be on your guard for. Don't lose yourself. Don't lose the thing that's really special about you. Bring that to the equation, to every equation. Yeah, you got to learn skills, and yeah, you have to learn ways to do things that are fundamental ways of doing things. But don't feel that you need to. Don't lose your way is all I would say about that. Don't lose your way in the process of making your career. A lot of times people will come in and try to change you and convince you that their way is better, but stick with what works. Let results always be the guide for how you should perform, for how you should conduct yourself. The next guy we had on was Robert Herbst, a great dude. These two guys were such great, man. Great guests. I got to talk to them both all day long. Herbst has a book out called Cheating Death. He got the title from an incident he had while mountaineering. He was catastrophic episode he and his climbing partner had on the mountain, and was able to escape with his life, but from that point took a really good approach to life and to selling. I highly recommend you pick up the book. The stories in there of the mountaineering experience. But the thing I like about him, and even and LaBov too, and they both kind of, both those conversations were really good because both those guests just kind of dovetailed over each other and complemented each other beautifully. But Herbst talks about how selling is the most honest profession in the world. And it's so great to hear that. It's so refreshing to hear that. It's so refreshing to hear somebody's, a lot of times you think of salespeople, they're kind of like these, always people think of sales, they always go straight to the used car salesman. I don't know why that is. But, and even used car salesmen are probably not all that bad, right? I mean, I'm sure there are some slimy people out there, but that they think but that's any profession. And sales has this this image of people thinking, well, this guy's just going to try to sell me something that I don't need, or he's going to try to sell me something that's not as valuable as it is, and he's going to get a lot more money for it, or I'm going to get this and it won't work for me. There's all these fears that people have around salesmen and talking to salesmen. And as Sandler pointed out, that's why people feel perfectly justifiable lying to salespeople. But, I think that Herbst's approach to sales was so refreshing and so great. If you're in sales, man, it is a noble profession. Somebody once said, nothing happens until somebody sells something. And, and we talked about that. And this is going to tie in with Alex Hormozi here in a minute. But I asked him, it's like, the hard part for sales is he said, well, it's like you're being a doctor. You're diagnosing a problem. I'm like, yeah, but in sales, you're the doctor and you're going out and looking for people with problems who may not feel sick, and you have to convince them they have a problem. And so his approach was interesting. It's like, I always approach it like I'm a friend. And it's like, if I'm a friend and we have a product and it's a good product, I know that it works. It's a good service. I know that it works. I know that it's worked for all these companies. And I see this other company. And I say, hey, and I come up to them and say, hey, we have this product. Here's what it's done for these other people. I think it would do the same thing for you. I think I see how this would help you. Would you be interested? And he said, it's like a friend. If you were doing something wrong, maybe you were gotten a little off track in your life, and your friend came up to you and said, hey, I think this could make your life better. And and that really was a great approach, because then when you get pushback, your friend's going to hang in there with you. I'm like, are you sure? Because I noticed this before. I noticed you were doing things this way before, and now you're doing them this way. I noticed this has crept into your life. I know this is happening. Can we try? Could we just maybe try something here just to see if how this would help you? I'd love for you to at least try it. And so it's the same thing. He's like, if he talked about that in sales, where if I'm convinced something is going to help you, if I really have a belief that I'm going to be very tenacious in making sure that you get the message. And he talked about memorizing sales lines too, which is interesting, because my old boss, Joe Pisaccio, he did memorize sales lines. That's what that whole Tom Hopkins book is about, is closes, and memorize these closes and things like that. But Herbst's approach is like, look, just come from a place of honesty, come from a place of service, come from a place of being truthful. Hey, I have this product, I have this service, I think it can help you. I don't know if it can or not, but the only way I can really find that out is by asking you a lot of questions here. When can we set up a time to do that? And he also gave a perspective on the people at the top, the decision makers, that, I think it's, especially if you're a salesperson, you're like, you feel like you're always just bothering people. You feel like you're taking their time. But the guys at the top that are decision makers, they want to hear from you. If you can solve a major problem for them, if you can help an issue that they are dealing with, they want to talk to you. They want those valuable conversations. When you can bring that to the table and come from a place of honesty and truthfulness. By the way, when I asked him the question at the end of the podcast of what advice would you give a salesperson? He said, be truthful. He said, truth is the greatest thing you can have in sales. And go back and listen to his answer. He said it much better than I just did. But I talked to him for a good hour. It was a great conversation. If you're in sales, I think you're really gonna like it. And the last thing I want to talk about is Alex Hormozi. If you're not taking or subscribing to the Mozi Minute, his little 1-minute newsletter, or the email that he sends out every week, or I think is it every week? It seems like it. I'm not sure the frequency of it, but it's wonderful. And the one that came out yesterday was really good. It was about it ties in beautifully with what we're talking about here. It was about the dog and the ham and the garlic. And so I'll recount it for you here. But the kid, a kid asks his dad for a dog. Dad says, yes, you can have a dog, but you got to take care of it. One day the dog gets ticks. The kid panics, asks his grandma, what do I do? She said, feed the dog garlic. He's like, oh, great. Gets garlic, takes it out to the dog. The dog doesn't eat it. And he comes back to his grandma. He says, he won't eat the garlic. Well, Dad's going to take the dog away from me now. And she said, well, no, you can't just give it garlic. You have to wrap the garlic in ham. So kid wraps the garlic in some ham, feeds it to the dog eats it, the ticks go away, everything's great. And Hormozi's point was that you have to, people don't want to, you have to get people quick wins. You have to, we can help you lose weight is not as powerful as saying to them, we can help you lose 10 pounds in 30 days. You have to wrap what you're saying in garlic, in something that's really appealing to them. And I think that that's also a thing that people have an issue with in sales. Going back to the Robert Herbst example, he's got something really good. If you have something that's really good for a CEO, if you have or anybody, a prospect, it's going to help them. It's a product or a service that's really going to help them. A lot of times, the whole issue of sales is just the ham part, right? And people are like, well, I don't want to be manipulative. I don't want to lie. You don't have to lie. You don't have to be manipulative. You're not trying to trick somebody into buying something that they don't want. Eating the garlic if you don't have a problem, right? If you're a dog. But what you are trying to do is you have this great thing for them, the process of sales, the process of learning how to talk to people, the process of learning influence, the process of gaining authority. All of that is the ham around the garlic. And that's what your job is as a salesperson, is to provide the ham. And I thought that was wonderful. The kid was not trying to give the dog something that he didn't want. The kid was trying to give the dog something that he needed the most. And if you can find those people in your sales career and have the product that they need the most and help them, then you really are going to just develop the sales chops. We had Luke Jorgensen on earlier, door-to-door sales guy. He said the same thing. My sales game really improved when I realized that what I had, the product I was offering people, really helped them. So get in line with your product. When you have a product that's really good, start there, and then know that you're coming from a place of being a friend. Know that you're coming from a place of, I actually want to help you, and this would help you. And then learn the skills. Learn how to handle objections. Learn how to present your product. Learn how to give yourself the authority to speak from a great place. And master those skills. There's so many resources out there these days. Hopefully this podcast is one of them that you can use to master those skills and techniques, and really get people to respond in a good way, and to give them to buy into the good stuff that you're offering them for purchase. That's it. So that's my it's a short one today. Hope you got some value from this. Go back and listen to the Barry LaBov and the Robert Herbst episodes. They're on radioupdate.com. They're on persuadingforprofits.com. They're really good episodes, really good dudes. It was such an honor to be able to have them on and talk to them. And we got more great people coming up. And otherwise, the whole purpose of this podcast is to really help you crush it in your sales career and have a great career. I hope you got something of value from this. We'll be back next week with another episode of Persuading for Profits. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.